It's a way of rejecting others before they could reject you. You chose to be alone because you didn't want to bear the consequences of not being chosen. Okay.
Remember when I was in primary school?
Okay. I know you're in primary school. I recorded this video in May and now it's June. And I don't know, I didn't feel like posting that voiceover because it looks so shitty and ugly. So I'm gonna do it again. So I'm just gonna get comfy, and this is the setup to look more cozy, and it feels like I'm telling you guys a secret, which it probably is because I don't ever say this kind of stuff. Okay, I wrote this a while back, and I'm an introvert, so I can't speak like that to the camera, so I'm just gonna refer to it while I tell you guys what kind of happened. Okay, I remember when I was in primary school and up even until junior college, there was this weird social contract that you cannot break. Like walking down the hallway alone, going to the canteen alone, and going home alone is social suicide.
No, you cannot do that. That is social suicide.
As if it was a symptom of rejection, that being alone means that nobody likes you, or that you had no friends.
But if my English teacher's the only friend I make today, that would be sort of depressing.
It was almost shameful to be seen walking alone. You know that feeling where it feels like everyone is staring at you weirdly? Yeah, that really sucks, especially when you're young. So, in the past, I thought the best way to overcome this was to always wait. To wait for my friends to end class, to wait for my friends to get food together, and wait for my friends to do the things that I want to do. It feels as though I'm tied by this invisible social contract that I can't do things on my own because it's weird if you do. But suddenly at 21 years old, everyone starts going on solo trips and glamorizing it, as if suddenly it was a symbol of independence and a hallmark of adulthood, that if you could travel to another country alone and settle everything by yourself, it was cool. It meant that you could pay for yourself, you were comfortable being by yourself, and the difficult logistics part of settling everything by yourself. But what's the difference of this and going home alone in secondary school? There isn't a difference. The only explanation I can give is that going on a solo trip sounds like intentional solitude.
I feel like I'm gonna forget this view, so let me just take it down in video form. I feel like you can never fully capture it on camera. It's crazy.
But going home alone is like forced isolation. But when we were young, the default answer was always to exist in groups, because everyone is technically doing the same things, and naturally friends just become a priority in your life. But as we grow older, priorities shift, and suddenly it's normal to be alone, and you are expected to know how to be alone. But you were never taught that, and it was never the norm. I feel like this process is inherently a sad one, because why would you want to be alone by yourself? You're just kind of forced to be in that situation because you just didn't have a choice to, and you just learn to be okay being alone. I guess that's the only way people learn how to be alone, because it's never a choice. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I learned how to be alone because I was put in the situation to be alone. You know, if given a choice, I wouldn't be alone. But I guess there's a spectrum of this, because not all connections are genuine, and sometimes you can still feel alone when you're surrounded by people, because loneliness doesn't really come from being alone, but being surrounded by people who can't understand you. If you can just picture this image of you standing in a crowd of people and you just feel like everyone's just moving and talking by themselves and you're just literally standing there. Yeah, that's the image I have. But at some point of time in life, you just learn to be alone, because as you grow older, you're just not surrounded by your friends as much anymore, and everyone has their own things to do, and that's why I guess being alone is okay. But I just wish that it was okay when you were younger too. that people didn't make fun of those who were alone. Yeah, I don't know, maybe because I've been through it and I know that feeling sucks, that I feel like being alone shouldn't be frowned upon. In fact, it's a strength that people possess because they can sit with themselves and their own thoughts, and they're okay to be perceived however whoever wants to perceive them. Yeah, I guess I only found it that even though I'm still scared of being alone, I'm a lot better at it now than I was when I was a lot younger. Yeah, I just wish I knew that it was okay to be alone. For me, I learned to just be okay doing things alone, because when I enjoy doing things alone, it means that it is intentional solitude, and that means I chose it myself. I thought that the act of doing it alone would be the surefire sign of independence. And when I subscribed to this belief, it was easy to block out others and believe that doing things alone is good for you. And I was really enjoying my alone time, and it felt like I had control over my life and my emotions. And I felt as if my strength was growing as I spent more time alone. But alone time without truly reflecting and really understanding yourself is just a defense mechanism. It's a way of rejecting others before they could reject you, and you just simply don't want to put yourself through that phase again of constantly waiting for people before you can do things. I'm gonna hold your hand while I say this, but you chose to be alone because you didn't want to bear the consequences of not being chosen. I feel like for many who enjoy being alone, it usually doesn't start out as a choice, but rather as a situation they had to deal with, that they were put in that situation at that given time of their life. I think when I learned, I took being alone to the extreme, that I had to cut contacts with people, or I had to be alone to be considered independent. But that's not really true, because both of them can mutually exist at the same time. And I guess it took me a while to realize that you can be alone and still have connections with people. Yeah, it's kind of like a messy thought. I don't know if you guys can understand it. And because of this notion that being physically alone and blocking everything out means power and strength, after that I was just so put off by connections and staying close to people around me that really care for me. And that's when this being alone, the spectrum of being alone, just goes into the extreme. And when you isolate yourself from everyone, you're just kind of in your own world. And I realized that that's not good for you at all. Everything has a spectrum and you need a balance for everything. So after that intense period of isolation, when I finally went out more and met up with my friends, I realized how much I've missed these connections, and that being alone can coexist with being surrounded by friends. Yeah, your friends really do play a big part in your lives because they see perspectives that you don't see, and they don't see you the same way you see yourself. And as I grew older and had more time to think about the topic of being alone, I realized that being alone doesn't have to mean isolation, that you could still be with people who understand you and care about you. And sometimes friends help to remind you of who you are because they see you for you and not the negative version of yourself that you see. And I kind of learned this the hard way, but just because you're afraid of rejection, you shouldn't project these negative emotions onto your friends and onto the people that really care about you, and keep them at a distance and push them away, which I'm all too familiar of doing. Yeah, guilty as charged. Okay, even though now I've grown to actually like being alone, there should always be a balance to keep the ones that matter close to you. I guess the goal here isn't to be alone, but to build meaningful connections while maintaining a strong sense of self. Again, I just really wanted to say that you need to have a balance of being alone and connecting with people. Not being alone to the state of isolation, and at the same time not giving your energy to everyone and anyone you know. Because when you do that, you can't really keep your peace, and sometimes some people are just not worth your time, and it's okay to let them go and cut them off. So that's the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.